Heroes and Legends for the Holy War, Episode 12. A decisive battle between two destined rivals. Damian had fully recovered, not at his full strength he had during the Age of Chaos, but just enough to be eligible and worthy of joining the fight. He knew that Kiban, who also had recovered from his injuries in the last war, had returned. The two rivals would finally be able to settle the score, because these dimensions were not big enough for both of them to still survive. During this clash, they asked their followers and their armies not to interfere. These two men had a score to settle, and they had to put this rivalry behind them and end it for good. And so they met at a neutral location on a plain field with no obstacles, no civilians, no armies, just two men powered up and ready for a fight. Kiban was impressed that Damian had recovered quickly, seeing how badly he was beaten and treated during the last war. Damian complimented Kiban for his concern, but however, he knew that Kiban did not come here to talk. Kiban then got into a battle stance, ready to end Damian's life and end their rivalry. These two legends were about to finally destroy one another. The battle commenced. Kiban and Damian fists connected with each other. Powerful shock waves could be seen and heard and felt for miles. The fighting was intense. Kiban then threw Damian 100 yards away. Damian then catched himself, began to flew, and went for a slam punch on Kiban's face. Kiban then withstood the punch and used a punch of his own, which sent Damian flying. But Damian then grabbed Kiban by the hair, and both men went flying. In the air now, the two men began to fight with kicks and fists and using their heads, which greatly made both men dizzy. Then they lay back on the ground, recovered for a while, and resumed their fight. Damian then used his own hegemony attacks and crossbows. Kiban then ran, dodging them, and used blasts of his own. The fight was intense and massive. The two men seemed to be at long last at equal footing. However, this would not last long, as this battle needed to be resolved. The determination only caused the battle to get more fierce and intense. Damian then used his ultimate special attack. Kiban then dodged the attack, knowing Damian very well, and then Kiban went for a powerful kick, which would send Damian flying, but Damian then teleported away and then used a crossbow attack to attack Kiban from behind. Kiban was shocked. Damian was slowly gaining his true powers back, but however, he will not be deterred. Kiban then began to use his might and then use all he had in one final attack. Kiban then attacked Damian with an attack which could destroy the entire army. Damian stood there and blocked it with his hands, covering his face, and withstood Kiban's attack. Kiban was impressed, but knew that Damian took damage blocking his attack. And so, Kiban flew with his mighty fists with one last attack to kill Damian. Damian did likewise. And then the clash produced a mighty explosion, which had been seen for miles. The whole area was a wasteland afterwards. When the dust settled, Kiban laid on the ground, and Damian went to hold him up, and Kiban smiled as he finally was satisfied. But he gave it his all at Damian and felt now that was worthy. Fight, Damian, Kiban laughed. Damian then agreed and said, "Yes, my old rival. Wish in the next life we see each other, we could be friends." Kiban then smiled and said, "Huh, I look forward to that day. Win this war, Damian. Win this war for both of us, and prove that my defeat to you was not a fluke." And then Kiban closed his eyes and died, and his body evaporated away and blown to the winds. And then the small armor that Kiban had, Damian then flew to Bajan and told Kibano's daughter, what had happened. Instead of retaliating, seeing the enemy right in front of them, she accepted the armor of her late father, and she cried in her mother's arms. Emmy then orchestrated a funeral procession for their late leader and lord. Damian attended this funeral, as he was not only a rival to Kiban, but also a friend. In the end, the great warrior Kiban had perished, but the war that Kiban and Damian were part of starting still needed to end, and Damian would use this as a motivation in order to lead the elders to victory and to end this holy war for good.